Hey everybody.
What is up? Roots to Grooves here once again.
Back with you for another episode talking about the artists that inspire us.
The artists that we are here to discover.
And discover.
We're here exploring alongside all of our listeners.
Yeah.
Some of this, Jay introduced me to Jazzanova.
Yeah. And have you not heard of Jazzanova before?
No, I might have heard the name before.
Okay.
Because it's a good name.
Yeah.
For a collective like this.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I was not familiar with the band.
Yeah.
I like their stylings though.
Yeah.
Super cool. So it's a German-based collective, you could say, because it's featuring songwriters and productionists alongside DJs.
Yeah.
There's kind of three facets, and then there's a live band as well.
Yeah, there's many facets, which is really interesting about this group, is they aren't really an artist in a traditional sense. And in fact, the albums they release are not an afterthought, but they sort of came after the fact of founding Jazzanova kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah, basically, they're a German-based DJ producer collective, is what they're called. There's 6 members. I won't try and pronounce the last names of each of them, but
Okay, I think we should. I'll try.
Okay, go for it. Okay.
It's gonna be bad, but so we got Alexander Bark,
Okay.
Klaus Brailer,
Klaus.
Yeah, Jürgen von Knobloch.
Jürgen.
Is that real? Is that
Yeah.
you know that? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a J in my name, and I'm J.
Silent J. Jürgen.
We got Roscoe Kretschmann,
Okay.
Stefan Lasering. Stefan, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you're German.
If you're German. Well, you pronounce the same person's name, and no matter where you're from.
Yeah,
I mean, technically, I
guess,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know how it is. And then we have Axel Reinemer.
There you go.
So I hope I got close. I hope I'm doing those people justice. I mean, no disrespect.
Yeah.
But there's some interesting names from a different language that I'm not super accustomed to.
There you go.
Which is German. As far as I know, Axel Reinemer and Stefan Lasering are kind of the main songwriting and production duo.
Yeah.
And they're coming up with these ideas, and then the other members are DJs.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's 3 of them are DJs, and 3 of them are like the producers that make the album. But really 2 of them are the core of making the music. And I think there's a third guy that might be more of an engineer in the studio sense kind of thing.
Right. I think they work with kind of even a slightly bigger circle of people to get to their end product.
Yeah.
But these 5 people would be the core member.
Yeah.
So they're for sure collaborating with many people.
Yeah.
Basically.
So you've got like one half of them that go out and DJ individually and together around the world, and you've got the other half that make the albums that you hear, and also the guys that DJ also run the record label that they founded as well.
Solar Collective.
Yeah, Solar Collective.
With a K.
Yeah.
No C's, only K's.
Yeah. It looks like Kalishnikov, but it's collective.
Yeah. that sounds Russian. You said it.
And it's just a very interesting thing about how they came together, based in Germany.
Real quick, I mean, so Jazzanova.
Yeah.
I hear it's funk, it's down tempo, new jazz, some acid jazz, chill out, maybe some chill wave. It reminded me of some bonobo type stuff, that kind of cool jazzy electronica. Latin jazz, soul, house. That's kind of the stuff floating around that I hear. So they're obviously blending some different genres. And it's super cool. I mean, I think their main thing is they always got a nice groovy bass line. Interesting beats. A lot of features with different vocalists.
A lot of features, with like rappers and singers, from all over.
So I mean, I get the vibe that these guys put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into each and every creation, which is each and every song. And then each greater album. They're all well thought through. It's all pretty in depth.
Yeah.
And it's all really visceral and gripping.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Great music.
Yeah.
I didn't know about this band, like I said before, until Jay introduced me. So it was a pleasure to do some research and listen to this stuff.
Yeah. So I think I first heard of them around the time of their very first album, 2002, called In Between, because I mentioned him before, but I will mention him again. Giles Peterson, DJ out of the UK that had a very influential radio show called Worldwide on BBC Radio 1. He's still doing that, not on Radio 1, but on BBC 6 Music, which is another radio station in the UK. And also he's founded his own online radio station as well called Worldwide FM.
Nice.
And he's been a massive inspiration for me. He's actually a massive inspiration for the guys from Jazzanova before they actually knew him and got to collaborate with him on marketing and doing projects and shows and festivals and stuff like that.
Right.
He spun some tracks from that first album. That's how I first heard about it. Like Giles Peterson put on a few like shows and stuff like that where he invited various people to play at, kind of thing.
Right.
Jazzanova being one of them. So I think I've heard about them since the release of their first album, and I could not put it down when I first heard it.
Which is their album called In Between in 2002.
Yeah.
So they've been a collective for over 20 years. I think
even before then. Yeah.
I think Axel and Stefan.
Yeah.
Stefan.
Yeah.
Stefan.
Yeah.
I think they were collaborating much earlier. I think they even went to school together and stuff.
Yeah. Did you find out about their early knowings of each other? Because I didn't know.
I'm trying to rack my brain right now, but I think what I saw in some interviews and stuff is they were school buddies, and they were just kind of getting into stuff from a pretty young age. So they were growing this bond, and this kind of musical attraction to each other, and that came up through like middle and high school, and beyond. So I think they were already talking to each other and stuff like 1995.
So Jazzanova formed in 95 without Stefan and Axel. It was the DJs that formed the collective first.
Oh, okay. I thought it was kind of the opposite. I think you're right though.
Yeah. So from what I gather, basically the rest of the guys were DJing at a club in Berlin, and the club asked them to like write some tracks or some tunes. I'm not sure why. Maybe they wanted trying to do a record label thing or something like that. And they said that they had no idea how to make music. And they were put in touch with this hip hop production duo, and that was Stefan and Axel. They were basically producing hip hop tracks for like German artists and stuff like that. Apparently there was a really bad sort of a group that they had that was rapping in English.
Bad as in bad, not good? Or bad as in super cool?
I think, I heard Alex Bark talk about this. I think he was, I don't know if he said the music was bad, but he said that the rapping was bad because it was these Germans trying to rap in English, and they didn't really know English very well.
Well, that's not going to go over well. Why don't you just do it in German?
Yeah, well, they did do some German rapping produced artists as well, I think. And that's kind of what that duo was doing, is they were producing their own group, and then they had other rappers that they were making beats for and stuff like that. And somehow they got introduced. And so Jazzanova, they already had this name before they met Stefan and Axel, because basically they needed to call themselves something, and there was this old like 60s record that had a track on it called Jazzanova, and they thought that sort of fit what they were doing, because the type of music they were DJing out was like Latin and jazz and
totally
disco and funk and hip hop and the whole mishmash kind of thing. So they called themselves that, and then so they had that name for like a year before Stefan and Axel came along, and and then so they kind of just stuck with it. They didn't really, once they came up with the name, they were just like, that's it. It wasn't like
that's what it is. We don't need
didn't second think it or
right. No, I mean it's a fantastic name.
Yeah.
I think it resonates with what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just say Jazzanova. I think if you think about that in your head,
yeah,
and then you listen to it, it will be what you thought of in your head.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
I would just guess. Maybe that's just me, but
well, that's cool now because I think I saw like a 2007 interview with Alex, and the interviewer, who's a guy called Benji B, who's also a radio DJ out of the UK. He was asking, because some people think jazz is like a bad thing, like in mainstream media at the time in 2007 in the UK. Mm-hmm. I guess like if people said jazz, they probably thought like, cheesy old stuff or whatever kind of thing.
Right, like it's an old school, out of date type thing that you're doing.
So it's interesting you don't think that now. I mean, also we fast forwarded through time from 2007 and
over 20 years ago.
Yeah,
these guys were putting music together.
Yeah, and I think the jazz term can mean it means many things to me. I don't know what it means to most people.
It's becoming more and more ambiguous.
Yeah.
As all the genres are. It seems when I research a new artist or discover a new artist, every artist has their own subgenre name. Like, it's hypergonic chill wave pop, and nobody else has that
coming up with their own thing. Or,
exactly.
Or blue wave, right? Isn't that what King Cruel?
Yeah. See, he literally came up with his own.
Yeah.
Or other people dubbed it his own, and then it's nowhere else because that's him. That's King Cruel. Archie Mathers, Marshall. Marshall.
Not Mathers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a great name, Jazzanova. I think it. So this band, have you heard of? I think you have. I think I've brought it up to you before. Snarky Puppy.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but I haven't really listened to their music.
And they have a lot of similar-ish vibes, from orchestrated, big orchestral sounds with more contemporary jazz and kind of poppy jazz. And they do mostly instrumental stuff.
Yeah.
Not as much vocals as Jazzanova, but that's kind of what my mind put those two together for me in my head.
Yeah.
So if anybody's heard of Snarky Puppy, I think this is a kind of band along those lines.
Okay. Yeah.
At least it was for me.
Yeah.
Because it's very in-depth, cool music.
Yeah.
I guess these guys are coming from a kind of a technology standpoint, as opposed to like I play acoustic guitar and I want to make jazz. It's not quite electronic, but they grew from the technology. I think Stefan and Axel had a C64 and an Atari console.
Yeah.
And they started working with this stuff, and this was the 90s when basically the internet was still popping up, computers were still popping up.
And those were old back then, Ataris in the late 90s.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're using already outdated stuff.
Yeah.
As this new technology was coming into play over the last couple decades.
Yeah.
So I just feel like they're kind of generally coming from a technology standpoint rather than like, we're super good live musicians and we're going to bring that into the techno world.
Well, Axel is definitely more of like an engineer, gearhead,
right,
and programmer, I think probably.
Mm-hmm.
And Stefan is more of a self-taught musician that also does programming and computer stuff, kind of thing. But yeah, he's taught himself every instrument and he plays all of them in various ways and capacities and on their tracks, kind of thing. And he says he's like, not kind of, I mean, I think I'm similar as well. As like, I can play guitar, but I would never call myself a guitarist or play guitar in a band because I don't know about chord structures or scales or anything like that. I couldn't jam. Like, I could come up with my riff and everyone jams around me, but I can't really like do that. And I think that's kind of like, his approach was, as a lover of music, as a a programmer on Atari music kind of thing, and then teaching himself instruments, because I think that's aesthetically and sonically where they wanted to go. They didn't want to just be like this pure electronic programmed music thing. And you can hear it in their music. Their music does sound electronic here and there, does sound programmed, but there's a lot of organic sounding stuff
completely
going on like at the same time.
From the interviews I would see and footage of them in the studio and stuff, they're obviously coming from this kind of technological standpoint and using even samples and using consoles to create sounds and manipulate sound and to create the soundscapes that they want. But they would also there's a guy in the studio with an acoustic guitar doing some vocals, like coming up with songs, songwriting. So it's definitely, they have a strong dynamic between the technological side of what they're able to do with the kind of older kind of heritage of where music is coming from and where this jazz came from, or where this fusion music came from. And they built a team. It's like a team of Avengers.
Yeah.
It's like a Marvel movie.
Power Rangers.
There we go. I watched some Power Rangers back in the day, in the 90s or whatever.
My brother was super into it, but I was just like, what are you watching?
Shut up, bro. My show's on. I was the Green Power Ranger, badass.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, I don't know anything about Power Rangers, so I want to talk about Dwayne The Rock Johnson instead.
We like to bring up The Rock on Roots to Grooves because he comes up in unexpected situations, and it's always
that should be our thing. We should find a way to work The Rock into every conversation.
I think one way or another he's going to at this point.
It makes no sense. He has no ties to music that I can fathom.
All right, now it's now our brain's job to try and loop The Rock back in a real way to Jazzanova.
In a real way.
If we can get it done in this episode, I'd be happy, man.
I'm sure there's a way.
Where there's a will,
there's a rock.
Exactly. We're on the same page.
Like you're talking about their studio technique and all that. And actually, like let's rewind a little bit before we talk about their first album, In Between, because I think it's an interesting story still about how they came all together, kind of thing.
Right.
Like we sort of established that the DJs had a collective. They were DJing in this club in Berlin and everything like that. But let's rewind a little bit further.
Even further back, okay.
Before all of them, because they were in Berlin, and growing up as kids and teenagers, they grew up when the Berlin Wall was still up. So you had East Berlin and West Berlin, and East Berlin being like the more communist kind of state, and West Berlin being more Americanized and westernized.
Right.
And apparently, like Alex talks a bit about this. He's one of the main DJs in the group.
So we're like late 80s here.
Yeah. And he said there weren't any record stores in East Berlin, and you couldn't get like the music that was coming out in the rest of the world, kind of thing. Because back then, obviously, you didn't have the internet and CDs weren't a thing. It was all vinyl records, and the only way to get music was to listen to radio stations or get the records, kind of thing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Comparison between the amount of accessibility you have to worldwide everything now
we take it for granted, but
and they literally, there's a wall separating where things could come in and come out.
So there's a wall,
and you're limited to, I can acquire these physical things to get music from or hear it on the radio. Very limited options.
So the only way was radio, and they tuned in a lot to like UK radio stations and radio stations outside of East Berlin, where they were hearing all this music, kind of thing. And so I heard the story about Stefan's grandmother.
Oh yes,
I'm went to West Berlin to buy hip hop records and like Public Enemy and stuff like that, and she'd have to smuggle it over the border back into East Berlin
for Stefan,
so he could have these hip hop records. His grandmother smuggled hip hop records.
That's a cool grandma. That's a cool grandma.
Yeah. But that's how it was back then.
I would like to see who's making a movie about that.
That actually would be a great movie.
Doesn't that sound good?
Yeah, that does. Yeah. The music and culture of divided Germany.
Maybe this is our responsibility.
Yeah. We should write the screenplay.
From Signl Radio Movie Production Studio.
Hey, well, we will make movies in the future.
That's our plan.
That's the plan. Yeah. Well, everything music related.
You heard it here first on Roots to Grooves.
Yeah.
Mark this on your calendar. It's a moment in history.
Unofficial announcement. But yeah, so like, that was rewinding back to their teenage years, that was the state of how they listened to music. So actually, like, it seems like a even divide between the 6 members. 3 of them grew up in East Berlin, and 3 of them grew up in West Berlin, I think.
Okay.
Or
I'll accept that.
West Germany or East? I don't even know. I'm terrible. That's a terrible thing for me.
Again, geography. We need a geography consultation on most of these episodes.
Yeah. But so and then the wall came down, and now Alex, who grew up in East Berlin, lives in West Berlin now. But he mentioned about that, how like East Berlin has become sort of, or was becoming in like sort of the late 2010s, as a place that was for sort of underground subcultures and music and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It was really starting to flourish there, kind of thing. But he said West Berlin is like much nicer and more peaceful place to live, kind of thing.
Nice.
So so it was just interesting for me to sort of like hear that background of them growing up in that. I mean, I remember as a kid seeing the Berlin Wall come down on TV. Like,
there must have been an intense kind of moment.
I mean, I was super young. I didn't really know what was going on.
Right.
But knowing about it, from seeing it on TV to sort of, as I grew up, learning more about what I had watched, kind of thing, and all of that thing. And especially being in the UK, Germany's not that far away and everything. And we visited, when I was younger as well, not long after. So, yeah. But, all of that came down. We fast forward the DJ years. They all meet. They start making music together.
So as far as I saw, it's Jürgen and Knoblauch.
Yeah.
Knoblauch.
Yeah. Jürgen
and Knoblauch. And Klaus Brailer and Alex Bark started as a DJ team.
Yeah.
So they were a DJ team, and this was around 1995 at this point. Mm-hmm. And this was in Berlin, and it was a club called Delicious Donuts. And this is where they were kind of DJing as a group themselves. Yeah. And Axel and Stefan were guests there, and they would go to enjoy the music and be, enjoy the club.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the incarnation of where they all were in the same room together for the first time.
Yeah.
And then in 1996, they started to produce a project that was like 3 tracks.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was released as like an EP.
Oh, actually, I totally forgot to do this, but I wanted to find that. I wanted to find those original things so we could spin them here.
That would have been cool. I didn't find them either.
Yeah, you didn't. You looked.
I didn't even look, Jay. I didn't even look, but I wanted to. I meant to.
Perhaps you can look when we play the next track and let me know if you find, like, on YouTube. Check YouTube.
Yeah, we could try to. Yeah.
Because they released some singles and some EPs before the first album that was sort of, I think that the people that heard them, what I heard, said it was kind of blew them away or something. And it was just like, it sounds like from the way people described it, it was in the vein of what they did on the in-between album kind of thing, which is very, just to talk a little bit about that album for a second, I would say it's solid, intricate, jazzy, electronic, very, very intricate, very well, slickly produced.
Definitely. That's the album that I started on when I began research on this. I just played that while I was chilling out.
Yeah, and let's say this is the album I grew up on. I listened to this since it came out in 2002, and I was just like, I would play it all the time. I had this actual CD copy of this, and it was like a cardboard case. So not a plastic case, a cardboard case.
Right.
And it had it's hard to describe this, but it was sort of all in set with like different layers for like the album artwork kind of things. So you would open up the different cardboard layers, and it would all like,
I think I can see in my mind's eye. Yeah,
it was cool, and that is cool. My friend had the vinyl version, which had it was done in a similar way, kind of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just like, I think that's back for me as well. Back in the day when you had the physical copies of these things and you're listening to the music, and it becomes like an experience, kind of. Especially if they design the packaging in that kind of way. You know,
I think the world is missing out on that aspect of music.
Yeah,
and it's just something you stream, which is great.
Yeah, that makes it out on the whole physical.
Yeah, it feels good to put on that, like open the record for the first time.
Yeah,
it's, a CD case even. Yeah. This is my experience because I wasn't around for records and stuff. Even the records are coming back and everything.
Yeah,
but open it up, put that CD in, you feel it, you look at it, it's shiny, has the artwork on it.
Yeah,
and you open it up and there's the lyrics or the liner notes.
Yeah,
who did what on the album.
Yeah,
or there's artwork inside.
The little booklet that they used to come with.
Yeah, something to experience and look into while the music's playing, and you're kind of more enveloped and like, here it is. I'm holding it and I can experience this, and that's super cool, man. I miss that.
I do. Yeah, I miss that as well.
I think a lot of people growing up probably haven't even experienced that ever. Like, there's probably kids growing up who have only streamed.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Which is like fine, but I think it will come back around because I feel like even the younger generation now that are discovering music, I feel like they might want to have a bit more of a connection with the music they're listening to at some point, maybe as they're growing up, kind of thing.
Yeah, just kind of an unknown thing that people weren't able to experience.
Yeah,
because now it's just get on YouTube, get on Spotify, and listen to stuff for free.
Yeah.
And they just never experienced that, music can be physical.
Yeah.
I can hold art in my hand and experience it while I'm listening to the vibrations in my ears.
Yeah. I mean, I used to do this whole thing of like, because my dad was heavily into music and he'd go to the record store, like maybe on a Saturday kind of thing, and I'd go with him and he'd go look through things and I'd go look through my things. And they would have these CD stations at the time. So you could like, go ask the person behind the counter if I can listen to this kind of thing, and they'll put it up there and all that, and and then I'd discover things just by like looking at the covers or whatever. I'd be like, this is crazy or whatever, and I'd get it home, and then it would be something that like I'd spent all this time finding in the record store and then listening to it and then bringing it home and then listening to it at home and then looking through the booklet. It's just a whole completely different experience of like, and it's an album thing as well, because you're not just buying a single, you're buying 12 tracks on this CD.
Right. It's a little more risky.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, maybe I won't like this whole album. I listened to this one track and I know I like that track, but am I going to like this whole album?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but that makes it all the more better when you find a track or a CD that you like everything on it, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Like I spent money on this, and I feel it, and I hold it, and I like everything on it. It means so much more.
Well, also it's like different sort of thought patterns as well, because like sometimes I would go into like those record shops back in the day, and it would be I'd listen to some radio shows and stuff like that, and some stuff that I'd liked,
right?
And then I'd see like that name on a CD or whatever, or I'll look at something else and I'd turn it over and it'd have some credits on there and it'd be like this I was like, well, I have no idea who this band is, but this person is credited on here, and I know this person makes good music.
This person produced that other album that I love.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna get it. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, no, I'm just gonna get it, because they were expensive back then. They were like $10 for a CD or more.
Yeah, especially for a young guy.
Yeah.
in the UK, you don't got. I don't know. Maybe you were richer than I was, but I didn't have money for CDs every day.
I think my first paper round gave me £2 a week, and then I upgraded and did a longer paper round for £4 a week. So
doubled your money. That not bad.
Yeah,
not bad, Jay.
Not bad, but yeah.
So before we get ahead of ourselves, back on this 3-song EP that they did. One of the things was I thought it was cool. This came out in 2007. I'm sorry, brain fart. 1997. This kind of 3-track EP was the first kind of incarnation of what Jazzanova would be.
What was it called? Do you have the name?
No. I'm sorry, I don't. Maybe you can look it up real quick while I do these stats or whatever. Because one of the cool things was it was privately pressed at Jürgen's flat.
Really?
Wow. Yeah.
He pressed vinyl in his flat.
That's as far as my notes go, yes. Damn. So one way or another, they did that themselves and put it out.
Yeah.
And so I guess pretty much from the very beginning, they were creating this Sonar Collective record label.
Yeah.
They didn't really bother signing with anybody from the very beginning or anything like that. They just kind of, we just made some music. We're going to press it ourselves and release it ourselves.
Yeah.
As far as I know. Yeah. If anybody knows anything different, let us know, because I'd love to know how they did it exactly.
Found it.
You did what? Drop it on us, Jay. What is it called? What is it called?
Well,
this is intense, guys. Listen up.
It's the... Well, wait a second. Okay, well, I think the main track... This EP is a real classic. First Jazzanova EP ever. It contains the genre-defying milestones for Demi's Flight, Bohemian Sunset, and Ellie de Cosmonuten, or something like that. 3-track EP. It's on Bandcamp, people. Jazzanova.bandcamp.com.
Great track names there.
I don't know why they didn't put this on Spotify, but they put it on Bandcamp. Well, you got to buy it, or you can stream it for free, and that's what I'm going to do right now. I had not heard this before at all. Oh, but wait. Oh, that was something else.
Giving it away.
That was something else entirely. But I feel like we should discover this, everyone together at the same time. You, me.
I've not heard this.
And the audience. This is the very first things that Jazzanova ever did. Can't find this on Spotify.
All experiencing this on Roots to Grooves for the first time.
I'm excited.
Me too.
What this is like.
I'm hyped.
It's called For Demi's Flight. go. We found it.
Fedime's Flight EP. Is that what you got?
Yeah.
Is that how we pronounce it? Fedime's?
Fedime. I'm not sure.
Fedime's Flight EP. Yeah. 1997, 3-track EP.
Whoa. And you said they pressed that themselves?
And distributed it from Jürgen's Flat.
Damn.
In, assuming Germany.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. Pretty groovy. That's a great song. That's a great track.
You know what? I have heard this before. But I think it was on Giles Peterson's radio show back in the day, back in the early 2000s. Because I remember this sample.
That it's bringing it back for you?
Yeah, that's what. So I've heard that. Yeah.
Dang, you don't lie to us, Jay. You already heard this and stuff. Like, why do we have to? Man.
I didn't even know. I mean,
that's cool.
Yeah, so
that's cool. How it sounds like that you can't recall it off the top of your head, but when you hear it, your mind's like,
just like
yes,
yeah,
I know it. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's
super cool.
So I mean, damn, like, that was very Latin sounding track, and I think when they first started making music, they were all about the dance floor and making music for the dance floor as being DJs, because that's where sort of came from. Was the DJ crew wanting to make music and wanting to make it for the clubs, for their sets, kind of thing, and and so. And I think that's kind of like where the first conversations came from, when Alex was talking about when he first started talking to Stefan and that they were playing all these like old jazz obscure records to them, kind of thing, and and they were saying, well, we can't just take these beats and stuff like that. You can't just take the
whole thing,
the drum thing from this like, So I think it was a whole conversation about, which is an interesting way to approach music, is they sort of approached it from the perspective of like, kind of like, this is what we want to do, let's talk about it, kind of thing. And then they're trying to figure out ways of trying to create that sonically, sort of thing.
Right.
And instead of just giving up, they actually they persevered and and made this EP and made that, and then went on to make the first album. So it's just a very interesting way of approaching it.
I love me some perseverance, Jay.
I mean, yeah.
Love it.
That's what I love about also I'm gonna forget his name now. The guy we talked about with the white hair, with the hat, the white hair and the hat. Not The Rock.
Definitely not The Rock. Also from UK?
American guy that based himself in UK.
But yeah, he moved to the UK. Okay, and
this is terrible. Sorry, people.
This is bad radio.
Bad radio.
It's so close to coming onto the top of my head.
But he was talking about the art of finishing, basically. Finish. Just if you start a project, finish it.
Rather than open up a bunch of new projects. Like, this one's 90% done. I'm gonna move on to, let me start a new idea.
Yeah, it's the art of finishing stuff, perseverance, So I think that's what these guys done. And you can hear it in their music as well, like, because in between, just to talk about that album again, because they only have really 3 official albums out there, is very intricate. Like, it sounds live when you listen to the recordings, but everything was intricately programmed. The drums and everything.
Sean Lee.
I
got it.
He's
I
the
didn't mean to
man
interrupt.
that talks about the art of finishing.
Right.
Yeah. And he has another documentary we need to watch as well. So Music Archives. We talked about that on his episode. So
right. Check out that episode, because it was super cool researching and learning about Sean Lee.
Yeah.
Super dope dude.
And another documentary we need to watch as well. But
Movie nights.
Yeah, so many. Maybe when COVID's over, we'll invite some people over to the Signl studios and we'll watch together some of these movies.
That's actually a great idea.
Yeah, if you want to be part of the audience for that, or an invitee.
I hope I'm invited.
Jesse won't be there because he'll be on eBay selling tickets for the show. No.
I got a job to do.
Roots to Grieves at signalradio.com.
Yeah, new location as of February 1st. being built, being painted, being organized, and that's going to be we're going to be recording there very soon.
Yeah. And they on the in between they said it was all sample based.
Right.
The only live elements were vocals, the vocal appearances from various people on there, including Clara Hill, Ursula Rucker. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ursula Rucker, but she's a great like American poet, singer that's appeared on many people's records and also had some solo stuff out. She's really good.
Cool. The only Ursula I know is like an octopus woman who lives under the sea.
Is this a Disney thing?
In the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, I don't watch that type of stuff. I only watch with the Rock movies. No, need to find a better way to work it in.
I don't know. I'm not going to count that one as a real reference. Right. But I applaud the effort, and I think we could do better.
We could probably do better. Yeah.
We're playing a game where we gotta reference The Rock somehow in a real way.
Yeah.
Without too much of a stretch.
And why? There is no why.
There's no why. Why not? Why not?
And vocals and vibraphone apparently was the only other thing that was recorded live for in between their album. The rest of it was all purely programmed and sampled. They even got into a bit of trouble, I think, trying to clear some of the samples they used for that album.
As in not clearing the sample and putting it out anyway?
I don't. Like, all I heard Alex say was that some of the writers got upset that their stuff was being used in that way, which kind of sounds like to me that they didn't. They just released it and didn't clear it.
Yeah, like you should have asked us, but thanks for using our stuff and getting it out there.
Yeah. But nevertheless, I mean, you wouldn't really know that there was samples used. I mean, okay, some of the tracks sounds maybe a little bit obvious, but
the track that we played, not completely obvious. Off the bat, I would say it sounds mostly like that could have been a live band playing.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, if you're into sampling and stuff, like you could probably pick it apart and be like, well, obviously it was sampled.
Yeah.
But you know, for a layman like me, just a music enjoyer.
Yeah,
it sounds great.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. I had friends at the time that I put them onto this album, you know, and they would be like, you know, and they would be like really surprised when I said that it was not live drums. It's
right.
Like, it's programmed, and they're like, "What? No, it's
what do you
not."
mean?
They tried to convince me that it was. I was like, "No, it's like, yeah." Like, cause he like Stefan is a real like big Atari guy, and he has this like rig. Even today, I think he has an Atari room basically, and they go in there, and like a lot of the music that becomes like the foundation, kind of the demo for the songs they do starts with him working on Atari, programming beats and sort of melodies and stuff like that, and then he'll take that and play it to is it Axel, sorry, yeah. And then they'll take it from there and then move on to Pro Tools and their big fancy studio and build out the track from there, kind of thing. But but Stefan starts in that way, and I think, you know, has a bank of like organic sounding samples that he uses as the foundation. And I don't know how he manages to program these beats in such a live sounding way. It's the best I've heard of anything, because, you know, even today, you know, anyone has access to all kinds of drum samples that you want to get hold of. Right. But, you know, no one, I mean, I've heard like, you know, live sounding drums that are obviously sound programmed and cheesy. And I've heard, you know, drums that were obviously just programmed. But I haven't heard like what he does on Jazzanova stuff, which is actually making it sound like you can't tell whether it's live or not. Like
the way he breaks it up and samples the different pieces of the set. Or the different percussion. It just comes across as I think that it's a testament to how serious they take it. And how real they want it to sound. They're not trying to make a techno album or electronic album, but they're using technology to use and manipulate real sounds into a new thing. And they do a really good job of that, to the point where a lot of people can't even tell if it's how sampled it is.
And then their album after this, all the things, is it sounds like live soul band playing. And apparently the drums are programmed on there as well. I can't believe that. I really can't believe that.
That's hard to believe. Something like soul that's literally meant to be like a real thing with real feelings and emotion.
Yeah.
And you can feel that, and they're creating that without actually having a soul band or even a real drummer play in the studio for that part.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think we should play a couple more tracks because I don't want to move away from In Between just yet, but I also feel like we should also talk about the next album at this point.
Do you want to play something from a new album, or what are you saying?
I say, how about we'll play something just from In Between.
That whole thing is great. I would love to hear another track.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody else would as well.
We'll do that, and then we'll talk a little bit about their next album, which didn't come out for many years later, 2008. 2002 was their first one. 2008 was the next one, which some people said that, or Jazzanova felt like people didn't even know that they came out with the second album because it was kind of lost when it came out for some reason.
Well, yeah, we'll play this track and then we'll talk about why they took so long and what were they up to in between that time.
Sounds good. really intricate.
I can't believe that's not a live band playing. Like, it sounds, it's rocking.
Because it sounds like with some of those drum sounds they got going in there, that it would be like live at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's all completely intricately programmed.
Yeah.
Like, that is insane.
There's nothing choppy that just feels like a cut. That's like, oh, new sample, different. Yeah. Which is cool in its own thing. A lot of people go for that kind of glitchy kind of sound, and it's cool in its own right. But this sounds like they were on a big stage and they had a nice recording.
Yeah, I mean,
mics and everything set up, and
it starts out obviously with the very obviously sounding electronic drums, but then it morphs and that percussion comes in and stuff like that. Like,
that was a great track. What is that track called?
That one's called Glow and Glare.
Off In Between, their first record.
Off In Between, 2002. It's 19 years ago. That's music here.
It sounds as good as...
And probably longer than that, because they probably wrote it and recorded it before they released it. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's some of the stuff. The first stuff this collective was coming up with.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't go to show what the rest of their discography is going to look like,
exactly,
it only gets better from here.
And so the funny thing that happened is, because they're a collective that's formed of DJs and producers, the guys that made this album never played live, and they didn't really have any intent of playing live originally. They just intended to stay in the studio and make the albums whilst the DJs went around the world performing, kind of thing. Yeah. And kind of what happened is that, this album came out, it hit really hard, a lot of people knew about it, and then someone would see, oh, Jazzanova is playing in London, let's go, kind of thing. And then they'll be like, what? This is just one DJ dude? Like, what's going on? And so a lot of people started talking to the DJs that were performing and saying, why aren't you playing this out live? Like, and they were confused, kind of thing. And so Alex said, there's some confusion there, because, there'd be a poster in a city of like 6 people on this poster, and their album's out.
Like, oh, this new band has a cool track, it looks like,
And then the show is like this guy DJing hip hop and like other shit.
Like, where's the other guys? Where's the band?
So
understandably,
so it was
for somebody who doesn't know exactly what's going on, I don't know how they promoted themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little confusing, because what is a collective? Yeah. Collectives aren't as marketing wise goes. It's not as popular to be like, here's a collective. You don't hear that on the radio, like, oh, here's a collective, here's their track. And it's an artist or a band or a producer, you know what I mean?
And there's very many examples of collectives like this in this way, I don't think, that I can think of that, go around like this. Yeah, so when you think of collective, you think about something else. You don't necessarily think about an artist performing out and about, sort of thing.
Ironically, I think of Animal Collective, which is...
But they were a band, though, right?
Is that a band, though? That's one finite artist or band. It's not necessarily a collective. That's just a word in their name.
Band, but I think it's probably like led by one person, right, or something like that. Yeah.
But it's certainly not a collective.
Yeah.
Where like you get to participate and you can add music and we'll release it, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what a collective is, but I think I do.
Well, I think like they're doing something very unique with Jazzanova, and I think it's sort of part of their history of how they came to be, as well as basically they said they share everything. Financially, they share everything equally between every member.
That's cool.
So even though it's like only 2 or 3 people that write and record the music for the album, they share all the publishing and copyright and royalties equally between all 6 members of the group. But then they said it works the other way when the DJs go out and play somewhere in a city, because they can command high fees now.
Right.
That the producers in the studio get a cut of that as well. So they're all getting a cut of each thing each way.
It sounds fair.
Yeah. So it's like,
I suppose, on the surface.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as you get along and it works out. Like Alex he's mentioned this time and time again. He said they're like an old couple now, like all of them, because when they talk about music, they don't even need to talk anymore. They just play some records,
right?
And the other person understands, kind of thing. And so that sounds really beautiful and nice that they can get along on that level. So, you know.
Yes, some of the interviews I would see is it seems like, you know, they're in the studio and, you know, Stefan and Axel, mm-hmm. you know, the producers around them, the people they're working around them, they say like, oh, these guys they don't even need to talk that much. They're like doing telepathy. Mm-hmm. Like, I know what the other guy in the other room wants.
Yeah.
Let me give it to him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, what is that? No, it's a family, it's a collective, and they have this energy between them. Yeah. And they know what each other wants. And again, back to like they'd be in the same clubs or the same record stores, and they'd meet each other, mm-hmm. and they would be looking for the same thing, and they would notice that.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, we're looking for something that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And I think they were part of creating something cool that hadn't really existed as far as I know.
Yeah.
You know, mashing these genres together.
Yeah.
Using different techniques I want to use your DJ skills with my production skills to present this music in a club.
Yeah.
You know, they're aware of the club culture.
Yeah.
And of music, you know, vinyl collecting culture.
Yeah.
And who to communicate with and how to communicate and how to get this stuff done.
Yeah.
And it's a huge project. It's endlessly impossible to work with so many different people on a creative project. Mm-hmm. And they consistently have done it, and it's a family, it's a collective, whatever you want to call them. It's amazing what they've done.
Well, I think they support each other in different ways. I mean, kind of like what Signl aims to do in a way.
You mean Signl Radio?
Signl Radio, yeah. Or Signl. It's just Signl.
Yeah, Signl.
We're more than radio. You know, so they have a studio complex in Berlin called JRS Studios, which anyone can rent, but it's also the home of where they make this music.
Cool.
And they have different rooms. They have like, you know, their main rooms. They have the Atari room. They have writing production studios as well, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I think all of that is sort of funded by everything. You know, it's funded by the DJing out in the world. It's funded by the record label that they founded. It's funded by the albums and the royalties from those albums and the live performance of those albums, kind of thing. And I think it's just like a really good concept. It's like, you know, here's a group of 6 people, a collective that want to make a living out of music. But that's not the main goal, making a living out of music. The main goal is, you know, we love music. We have a passion for it. How can we make that our life and our living, kind of thing? And sort of sharing in the benefits of that, you know. And
create something much greater than any individual one of them can.
Yeah. And like, you know, so Stefan and Axel primarily spend 90% of their time in the studio making music.
Right.
The other 3 guys DJ around the world, but 2 of those DJs also run the label. And so like Alex said, he's like the go-between guy because he said he's not a good office worker and he doesn't like doing that type of shit. So the other guys do all that sort of logistical shit, office work.
The bureaucracy
of running the label.
Paperwork.
Yeah, and doing all that sort of stuff. So they kind of can support each other in this way. You know, if you've got these 2 guys working on that end of things and these 2 guys doing this thing, you know, it's like
that's
kind of like it's a balance.
That's possibly more beautiful than what they are as a musical collective.
Yeah.
But as a greater kind of business collective.
Yeah.
Like they recognize how you can be so much greater and so much more efficient if you create a team and allocate different duties.
Yeah.
And everybody benefits.
You say alligate.
Yeah, like alligator.
Did you mean delegate?
I think I just...
Or did you just mix allocate and delegate in the same word? Alligate.
No. Oh, yeah. No, I think I definitely did that. I'm thinking back now because allocate is a word.
Yeah. And delegate's a word.
And delegate's a word.
But allocate.
I'm just trying to be more efficient, Jay. I'm just trying to like we blah blah blah. So many words. Let's just shorten this up quick. Our listeners don't want all this BS, you know.
As long as no alligators are going to come up in the studio, I'm fine with that. It's fine. Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Sorry,
I'll try to correct
it just threw me off. As soon as you said alligator, I stopped listening to everything you said after that.
Did that guy just say alligate? That's hilarious. I'm going to use that word in the future, and we'll hopefully all know what we're talking about from
Work
there.
it into a sentence. Get it in the dictionary.
Yeah, it's a real word now. All words are made up, Jay. Really? All of them.
You mean someone made up the word "the" back in the day?
It didn't exist at some point.
It didn't exist, and then
think about that.
And then all of a sudden, it was like, we can look. Hey guys, we could use this word to describe a bunch of things. The.
That guy just says duh. He doesn't know any. He can't talk.
He can't do it. He can't pronounce his th's.
Duh. The Rock.
No, that's still a bad way of wording.
God, it was almost natural. That was my best shot, though.
At least my way of working it was talking about movies.
And rocks in movies, we know. Okay, yeah, okay. We'll let the audience decide. Roots to Grooves, listeners.
Yeah,
let us know what's the better reference.
We'll have a Twitter poll. Mm-hmm. Does anyone use Twitter anymore?
I have an account, but I don't ever use it.
So does Signl.
I don't know. We'll see what's happening. The social media game is always changing.
It's always changing.
So maybe we should get on there. Game.
But where were we? Yeah, just the collective thing. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
And I wanted to say about the live aspect of Jazzanova as well, because basically there was a confusion. All these guys were out DJing, and people were asking, "Where's the band?" So they basically reacted to that and put together the band specifically because people were confused and wanted to hear Jazzanova live, not just the DJ stuff. So, so they put that together. I think it didn't really take steam until they did their second album in 2008. And that was the point where they started going out and playing live the tracks from the new album and then tracks from the first album kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. I was going to say, myself and Jay have been in this situation where it's kind of, what kind of band are you?
That's true.
What's going on? Exactly. So we both played in Sultans, which was kind of led by our good buddy Shayhan, who lives in LA now and is still, check out Shayhan online. But that music was kind of produced by Shayhan and Jared Rubens.
Yeah.
And then we had a live band to recreate that production semi-closely, but not exactly the same as... It's impossible to create exactly what was being produced that was released.
Without using samplers. And, I mean, you can, but it's like we made the decision to take it in a different direction.
We all, Shayhan and we all really wanted to make it a real band, like live instrumentation with no laptops or further technology as far as sampling and stuff goes. And so, we would get questions like that too, like, oh, this doesn't sound quite like... We'd play the music live, we'd do a set live here in Seattle at one of these cool venues, and it's not the same. So people would ask, who's in the band? What is the band? Yeah. And so there was some, just a little bit of...
Or they would think we were a band,
but then,
as opposed to being like, and I think that's kind of why Shayhan's gone off now solo, which is, I think, a good move from a marketing perspective, and we still hope to play live music with him on the solo shit.
I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Yeah. We were supposed to move to LA, but COVID happens.
Damn COVID.
But I think that's less confusion because, if we had played live and it was under Shayhan's name, I think people would have understood maybe more.
For sure.
Or they wouldn't think Shayhan's a person. They'd think it's still a band because it's a name.
Oh, Shayhan. They changed their band name to Shayhan.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. There's all these... I mean, it's something to think about, right? If you're a musician and you're releasing music. I mean...
totally.
You don't have to... I think anyone can do anything they want to do.
Totally.
And from the perspective of Jazzanova, they said, yes, it was confusing, but he also said that he think that confusion kind of went in their favor a little bit because it added some sort of mystique around them.
Yeah.
Because people started to talk about them like, well, what are they? I just went to see them and there was this one dude DJing, but then there's this album out and he wasn't playing. And then there's this other guy called Jazzanova who looks completely different, who's also playing.
Right.
So it's like, I think it was kind of cool for them. I think it sort of created some mystique, some curiosity. People started to talk about it kind of thing.
Totally.
So it's not a bad thing. I think for us with Sultans, I wouldn't say that was necessarily a good thing because that wasn't our intent. and also I think it's confusing because I actually didn't want people to think we were a band. I wanted them to think it was a production duo and we were taking it out live. That's what I personally wanted.
I was on the same page as that. I'm here, we want to do this music justice, and it's not going to be quite the same as what was released on all the streaming platforms and everything. Yeah. But we're supporting these two dudes' production and trying to do it justice in a live way to bring some sort of live, show for people in the city to enjoy. Yeah. And for us to enjoy playing.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
So, I mean, it comes down to kind of marketing, what do we want to show people and what do we want to be? Because, perception is reality. Yeah. And I did mean to rhyme that, by the way. So if anybody plays it back, I think I rhymed. I'm kind of a rhymer.
Perception is reality. Is that the rhyming line?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. I'm just kidding, everybody. I just say random things. That's all I do.
I don't think it's a rhyme. I think it flows well, though.
Okay. Well, I got some flow, Jay. Flow. I got a little bit of flow. Yeah. So anyway, we've experienced that. But I don't know. Back to Jazzanova. That's 2002 is In Between. That's the record I would start off if you're looking to get into these guys. Yeah. I love it. It's great.
And then Of All the Things came out as the second album. Like I said, I think it wasn't released on Spotify until 2013 or something like that, or later, I think. I'm not sure. But it was sort of mixed up in their discography. If you look on their discography on Spotify, it's sort of in a weird random order on there kind of thing. But it is their second album. And it's more sort of live orientated sound, soulful, retro, organic. This is when they started playing live as well. Again, this album has a bunch of features, a bunch of rappers, a bunch of singers on it.
We're talking about remixed?
No, I'm talking about Of All the Things.
Oh, Of All the Things.
Yeah. Because they've only had 3 official albums out. In between Of All the Things and The Pool, they have this one called Funk House Studio Sessions, but I saw an interview with Stefan and he said it's basically re-recordings of their pre-existing songs, so he doesn't even count it as an album.
I was just going to say, of all the things came out earlier, but on Spotify, for example, it says that it was at least released on Spotify in 2019.
Yeah. So it actually came out in 2008. Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah. So, just to give a little bit of background, that first album came out in 2002. Yeah. And their next full-length original music LP, came out in 2008.
And people might get confused because in amongst these 3 official albums, they've done a bunch of remixes. They've done a bunch of DJ mix compilation albums. There's a lot of stuff out there with Jazzanova's name on it, but there's only 3 original albums.
LPs,
LPs,
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, they're just to let everybody know, they're well known as DJs, and they're known to remix their own stuff. They do big projects remixing other artists' music, and they release this stuff. So they're certainly keeping busy all the time. Yeah. And this is what's taking all the time between their main album releases.
And it's an interesting fact from a musician's perspective, where I heard Alex saying that when they did some of these remixes, there was one remix in particular, I don't remember, I think it might be from Common or someone like that, I'm not sure. But apparently just it blew up real big, and then they were sort of booked for all of these DJ slots out of nowhere kind of thing. And he found it was a discovery experience for him, because the remix was this banging house track, and then he'd go to the place he was booked for and he'd play all this hip-hop stuff kind of thing.
What is this?
Yeah, and then it was a learning experience for him, because he was oh yeah, I need to sort of know my audience kind of thing,
right?
Which is cool. They're sort of learning out of that. But it's also interesting for me that a remix alone can get you booked high-paying DJ gigs.
That's interesting to me, because I always think remix is it's not as cool as an original song. Yeah. But in reality, it is.
Yeah.
And people out there listen to almost primarily remixes. And it just comes to what you like as a listener. There's no rules, and you can like whatever you want, and I completely support it. I'm usually not drawn to remixes myself personally, but I'm more and more seeing the value in them and how much they're respected from the music community in general.
I come across remixes all the time, and I do like a lot some of the remixes I come across. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if I've come across the original track and then I see like 50 remixes, it's like I kind of don't know what to listen to. It's like, should I listen to the original? And sometimes the remixes are not all great. Some of them are a little crappy, but there'll be one that's like maybe better than the original kind of thing. But I also don't want to sit there and listen to the same concept of a song, like
in slightly different iterations.
Slightly different iterations. Like it's just like give me one. Like, but I think this depends where it hits you. It's weird because I think the idea of the remix really sort of came about from the club thing and playing it out. A lot of back in the day, a lot of these indie rock bands had dance club remixes done just so they could get in the club and people would be like, who's that? And then, but I don't know if it works that way anymore. I'm not sure, but it seems like an old school thing for me. But
yeah, I guess it kind of seems like that to me, but the more I kind of look into it, I still am amazed at how many remixes are out there.
Yeah.
And, for example, on TikTok, I see people are constantly remixing and adding on other people's sounds. You have like sounds on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then somebody will change it or they'll slow it down.
Is that songs though, or is that just like audio of people talking and stuff?
On TikTok, they're called sounds.
Yeah.
Because you can have a song like I have my music that I've released. I can find it on TikTok, just like on Spotify or something. But somebody else could use my song, and then they could put a voiceover over it, or change it, and then that's their sound, technically. And so that's why it's a sound, because all this music is essentially being remixed in different ways with voiceovers, or it's sped up, or it's slowed down, what have you.
It's like sampling.
It's
just sampling in
exactly.
TikTok. Yeah.
And so that's what's kind of leading me to believe, like, okay, well, sampling is valuable somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Whatever that might mean to the greater music community. But, here we are, 2021, and sampling is still a thing.
Yeah. Whether you know it or not, whether it's cool or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm always kind of exploring it a little bit on the side because I continually come across samples and stuff, but I'm still never really drawn to it. That's just me being like a hipster guy, like, oh, well, what did the original artist intend me to feel? And I like to try to respect that. And like, what were you trying to do with that original piece of music? And at least before I experience all these remixes and stuff, I want to know where that energy was coming from and why it was there in the first place and what that artist was trying to convey in the first place with their, piece of sonic art.
Yeah. I understand that. I think I'm on the same page of you as that, because a lot of times sometimes the remix versions are a completely different genre than the original artist, which is not what I would normally listen to or whatever.
Exactly.
Or I would normally listen to the genre of the remix, but I wouldn't normally listen to the genre of the original.
Yeah, and so there's some disparity there.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like annoying sometimes to like
totally
one way or the other to be like, well, here's this great track and you fucked it up.
Yeah.
Or like, here's this great track, but I'm not really into that like, weird acoustic band or whatever.
Yeah. But not to say that it's not good music, literally anything is possible. And if you enjoy listening to it, then it's good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's the point we're kind of getting at.
Yeah.
As far as sampling goes.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Jazzanova.
But let's play a track.
Yeah, play me a track real quick. Just surprise me. I don't want to know.
We'll just give everyone right now
Where are we going?
A taste of all the things. This is Jazzanova's second album. If you've heard the tracks we've played so far, or if you've listened to the album yourself, you might think this is kind of a different thing. So I'm just going to randomly play this one called Let Me Show Ya.
should take your time before you fall again. If you're doing love, now's a good time to wish upon a starry sky. And take your time, trust that you will win. So you got that look again, like you lost your best friend. Said he didn't get to know you, didn't get to see you for all the beauty in you. You chose to set aside, you chose to compromise. Every time you saw the dangerous signs come crashing in. Oh, we're so hard on ourselves, we're only human. The message we all should learn. If you're doing love, let me show you at least 1,000 reasons why you should take your time before you fall again. If you're doing love, now's a good time to wish upon a starry sky. Take your time, trust that you will win. Oh, it's so hard to be alone. It feels so good to have the kindred soul, but it's better when it's on equal ground. That's the kind of love that stays around. So he charms you, wines and dines, picks you up right on time. But he never seems to wonder, never shows an interest in anything about you. You chose to set aside, yeah. You chose to compromise. Every time you saw the dangerous signs come crashing in. Oh, we're so hard on ourselves, we're only human. There are lessons we all can learn. Oh, if you're doing love, let me show ya at least 1,000 reasons why you should take your time before you fall again. If you're doing love, now's a good time to wish upon a starry sky. And take your time, trust that you will win. Oh, it's so hard to be alone. It feels so good to have a kindred soul, but it's better when it's on equal ground. That's the kind of love that stays around. Listen, girl, dry your eyes, don't fret. You know better than that. Till you learn how special you are, you'll pull up and smack like that. Ooh, dry your eyes, don't fret. You know better than that. Till you learn how special you are, you'll put up a smack like that. Dry your eyes, don't fret. You're special. I'm just schooling you. Oh, oh, ooh. Dry your eyes, don't fret. You know better than that. Till you learn how special you are, you'll put up a smack like that. Dry your eyes, don't fret. You're special. I'm just schooling you. You're special.
Let Me Show Ya off of 2008's Of All the Things by Jazzanova, featuring Paul Randolph on the vocals there.
Good stuff.
He also performed all the vocals on their live studio album, Funk House Studio Sessions. I think he went on two of them and played some of their songs because Jazzanova guys said that he was the only vocalist that they found that could replicate all of their features. Like all the different various vocalists that they've had on their albums throughout the years, like he could replicate all of those vocals.
He could do his parts live, actually.
Yeah, and that track was played on a Red Bull lecture featuring Alex, and he said that the drums were programmed. I do not believe that. I still don't believe it.
Really? Those drums on that track?
Those drums were not live.
I thought they were sampled from something that was real.
Like the whole album sounds like that. Like if you're listening to this on headphones, which I encourage our listeners to do, just because you can hear the panning, like the drums are like pans to the right.
I was going to say that's one thing I noticed, which is cool, which is kind of an old school way to do it.
Yeah, but in the old school way of like when recordings were done in like mono and they only had one microphone and they'd pan the drums. And this is actually how people used to sample, because people found out that if you panned the channel to the left, you could just get the drum and bass track and you could sample that in a track. And and it cuts out the vocals because the vocals are always panned
in the middle.
Or in the middle or the left kind of thing.
Right.
So, but
nice.
Yeah, interesting. See, I mean, I don't believe it, but
that's hard to believe.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was an old school track that they just that they sampled and recreated.
Yeah, no, but that whole album is original, and that whole album sounds in that vein of what we just played there. Like there are many tracks that have that vibe to it, same sort of sonic kind of
like a 70s Motown kind of vibe.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well because they also said as they've progressed with writing Jazzanova albums, they said they've moved away from the purely electronic way of programming things and more to a songwriting way of doing things, where they said they used to like focus on making tracks for the dance floor, and now they sort of focus on making songs for songs kind of thing.
Right.
And getting more involved in the songwriting process in terms of like melody and everything like that. And so that's another sort of trajectory they've taken from their early days.
I love that because I prefer to listen to music and really envelop myself in music when I'm isolated and I'm by myself and I can experience it how I want to. Yeah. And experiencing music in a club or something when I'm surrounded by people and it's a social event.
Yeah, I don't really focus in on music when I'm in a club.
Exactly. I like good music to be playing under that setting. Yeah. But at that time, I'm focused on who I'm with and the people around me as a social aspect more than I'm here for the music.
Yeah.
So, whatever. To each their own.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
So, I mean, yeah, cool. I mean, was that from, what album was that from?
Of All the Things, 2008.
Word.
Yeah.
But which actually was released on Spotify or re-released in 2019.
There you go.
So cool. And then I guess we can backtrack 1 year when The Pool was released.
Oh, that was their most recent, 2018. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, and 2019 they also released the Of All the Things instrumental version.
Yeah.
So along with Of All the Things, that was both re-released.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of confusing, and I've just become aware of how many artists kind of re-release stuff, and then it's seemingly out of order if you compare two references for when these releases happened.
Yeah, you can't go via the Spotify things, at least not for older artists, like the newer artists for sure. But yeah, some of these older guys, like they don't even release some of their stuff on Spotify. Like Jazzanova have not released their first EP on Spotify for some reason.
Right.
Maybe because of the samples. I'm not. I don't know. We keep talking about Spotify, but I feel like it's kind of, the placeholder for all of these music platforms. Because I feel like if someone's not releasing it on Spotify, they're not releasing it on any of the other ones either, like Apple Music or Pandora.
But usually if you find something on Spotify, you can find it just about everywhere else.
Yeah. That's what I think.
And I think Spotify is the main discovery tool of the current time or generation.
It's become ubiquitous, and it's, it is, I know they pay artists shit money, but all of them do. So, it's my go-to platform right now.
Yeah.
But
we're not sponsored by Spotify or anything, so
no.
So we can hate on them all we want.
Yeah, except when they buy this podcast for $300 million, then we'll have to delete this episode or edit it or something.
Collateral damage, Jay. Collateral damage.
I mean, for my 150 million, I don't care. Do what you like. I'm going off on a beach.
We're going to do Roots to Grooves from the beach then, okay? One way or another.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you off the hook.
All right. Sounds good.
Well, cool. I mean, I think we're up to date. That's the pool.
Mm-hmm.
In 2018, that is one way or another. Overall, that is officially their latest release.
Yeah, and I feel like they're going to come out with one in maybe this year, 2021 or 2022, because they said that the more they've worked on music, the better they've got on it, and actually that live experience has helped them in the studio as well. Where they say, like, they've come off the road and they've gone back into the studio and felt even more inspired than before, kind of thing. And so Stefan said that, like, he said, I don't think you're going to have to wait that long for the next one, because it was 2002, 2008, and then 2018. But
they're getting better. They're getting closer with their releases.
They're getting closer, and they said, so the reason that album is called The Pool is because they had a pool of ideas and sounds they were drawing from to create that album. Like, and he was asked, like, well, he was like, not everything he came up with in the pool of his sounds made it on the pool, but he said that he's probably just they're gonna start creating new material for the next album. They're not even going to go back to the unused material that didn't make the cut for that album.
Interesting.
They're going to just like do new stuff because I don't know, they're inspired, and
if that's what you feel, then go with that.
Well, the other thing he said as well is, like, he'll create like 50 tracks or whatever kind of thing, ideas, and then bits and pieces will be taken from all of those 50 ideas to create different songs.
Take the best part of that track, the best part of that track, and this beat that you have, and let's put those together, and that's a new track.
Yeah, so there might be other bits of these other things that weren't used, but they're kind of like, it's kind of like they're just like leaving it out there, which is, I mean, that's a creative process as well. You have to come up with a bunch of shit to get what you want out of it.
Right.
And then move on. Like, and there was a reason you selected those things and left the other things behind, maybe, so.
Exactly. Yeah. Not to say, I mean, maybe they'll come out with that stuff 10 years from now. Yeah. Like, let's revisit some of those older ideas.
Yeah.
It's just the most important thing. Go with what you're inspired by.
Exactly, yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's sitting in your phone and an idea is there.
Yeah.
No need to be obligated to do anything. Exactly. Go with what's most inspiring for you creatively and follow that path.
Yeah.
And that'll lead you to, success, hopefully.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's close out.
Jazzanova, guys. I was super impressed as I was discovering this band. Super happy that Jay brought this to the table. Super cool stuff. New jazz, acid jazz, a little chill out, they say. You can maybe a little chill wave. Yeah, I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed this group. Again, kind of reminded me of Snarky Puppy.
Yeah, check them out.
It's like funk and electronica mixed with jazz.
Yeah.
Super groovy the whole time.
Yeah.
Cool vocal samples. And in the pool, I did want to say real quick, had Jamie Cullum on one of the vocal features, who was cool because my dad would play him a lot, and he's a cool guy. He's kind of like a cool jazz singer.
Yeah.
Almost offshoot of Michael Bublé type entity.
Yeah.
Not
but
that
he's gone off and done some like sort of interesting.
Totally, not to say that
he's kind of mainstream, I would say he was, but then he's gone and done some interesting sort of like off mainstream things. Yeah.
Right, that's all I mean to say. He's reached mainstream success, but he has a lot of cool different projects that he's a part of.
Yeah. You used to have a radio show as well on BBC, I think.
Oh, really? Okay, so
jazz music.
I mean, he's a prolific artistic. Losing my voice here. Sorry, everybody. Artistic, creative gentleman. So that was cool to see on the pool on their last record.
Yeah.
For Jazzanova. So again, Jazzanova.
Yeah.
Roots to Grooves. Check them out. Let us know what you think. If you got any ideas or any cool stories about Jazzanova, you want to hit us up at the email.
rootstogrooves@signalradio.com. Yes. That's signlradio.com.
That is right.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, kids.
And we'll play out with this track from the pool so you can get a little bit of vibes of that album as well.
Yeah.
It's called Sincere, featuring Noah Slee. I think it was kind of their lead single from that album when they released it at the time. They played it a lot on all the videos I saw, so
I'm down.
It's cool. Yeah.
Thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Roots to Grooves. I'm Jesse Quigley.
I'm Joey Purcell.
Boom. See you next time.
See you next time.
Roots to Grooves is a production of Signl Radio. For more music and independent culture, visit signalradio.com. That's signl radio.com.